the broken light, and the heavy silence. The sun had just begun to rise over the set in downtown Los Angeles, but the light felt artificial. Thick clouds loomed overhead, casting a strange stillness over the studio lot. Inside one of the older sound stages, the crew moved in silence, their faces drawn with fatigue after 5 long days of shooting under pressure. The film they were working on was high budget, high stakes, and high tension. But today, something was different. The energy felt tight, like the air before a storm. And at the center of it all stood Ana de Armas. She was trying to hold herself together, trying not to show the weight she carried behind her smile. From a distance, it seemed like she was just another actor on set, flawless, composed, professional. But up close, her eyes betrayed her. They were glassy with exhaustion, not the kind that came from long hours, but from something deeper, something personal, something quiet. Keanu Reeves arrived that morning as he always did, early, unnoticed, and carrying his own coffee in a battered thermos. He nodded politely to the security guard, gave a quiet smile to the grip organizing cables, and slipped into the shadows of the set before anyone could pull him into unnecessary conversations. He liked to observe before he acted. It was part of who he was, measured, careful, kind without performance. He had noticed something yesterday. Ana had flubbed 3 lines during a scene she'd mastered the week before. Not because she didn't know them, but because her voice had cracked unexpectedly, her gaze going distant. The director had brushed it off, asking for another take. But Keanu had seen the tremble in her hands after they cut. She had clenched her fists so tight her knuckles turned white. Today, as she stepped onto the set in costume, holding her character's leather jacket with a grip too tight to be casual, Keanu watched from his mark. He could sense something wasn't right. And the crew could too. People whispered behind walkie-talkies, giving space without knowing why. But no one asked questions. In Hollywood, silence often replaced sincerity. The scene they were filming required Ana to walk through a rain-soaked alley, scream into the darkness, and collapse in grief. It wasn't a hard scene technically. There were no stunts, no difficult camera angles. But emotionally, it was heavy. And today, it seemed like too much, not for the character, but for Ana herself. The first take began. Fake rain poured from above, soaking her as she walked forward. She screamed as scripted, her voice echoing off the empty set. But when she fell to her knees, her cry wasn't acting. It was real, raw, uncontrolled. And then, she didn't move. The director called cut, but Ana stayed kneeling, her hands on the wet pavement, shoulders shaking. No one dared approach. Not even the assistant director. There was a silence so thick, it pressed into everyone's chest. Someone finally whispered, "Is she okay?" Keanu stepped forward without hesitation. He didn't say a word. He walked slowly, gently, like approaching a scared animal in pain. He knelt beside her, not caring about the cold ground or the rain soaking through his jeans. He didn't touch her, didn't speak. He just knelt there, beside her, and let the silence speak for him. After a long minute, Ana looked up. Her face was streaked not just with rain, but with tears, real ones she had tried to hold back for days. She met Keanu's eyes, and he didn't ask what was wrong. He just whispered, "You're not alone. We don't always have to carry everything ourselves." That single line, soft, simple, human, cut through the noise in her heart like sunlight through fog. Later that day, the director ordered a break. Everyone cleared the set. The rain machines were turned off. Someone brought dry towels, but Keanu refused one until Ana was wrapped in hers first. He walked with her to the backlot trailer, and still, he didn't ask questions. Instead, he brewed her a cup of tea using a tiny portable kettle he kept in his backpack. She watched him, quietly stunned. He moved with a kind of peace that didn't demand attention but gave comfort by simply existing. Inside the trailer, Ana finally spoke. Her voice was small, cracked. "I didn't sleep. My mom called last night. She's in the hospital, but I couldn't fly out. I had to be here." Keanu didn't interrupt. He just listened. Fully. With both his ears and his heart. Ana looked down at the tea in her hands. "I felt like I was losing my grip. Like I had to smile for everyone, or I'd ruin the whole shoot." Keanu leaned back, his gaze gentle. "You don't owe anyone a perfect version of yourself. Not here, not ever. If something's breaking inside, it's okay to show it. It's okay to feel." That moment, unseen by cameras, unnoticed by the wider crew, would become the quiet turning point in Ana's heart. It was the moment someone finally gave her permission to be human. Not a star, not a role. Just herself. That night, when the crew gathered for the evening call sheet, word had spread. Keanu had stayed late, not to rehearse, not for press, but to comfort Ana, not just with words, but with presence. And something else, too. He had spoken privately to the director and quietly arranged for a 2-day break in shooting without telling Ana. He covered it under the excuse of lighting calibration delays. No one questioned it. No one ever questioned Keanu. What shocked the crew was not that he had done it, but that he never mentioned it. He didn't want recognition. He didn't even want thanks. He just did what needed to be done. Because he saw someone struggling. And to him, that was reason enough, but what came next, no one saw coming. The message she never expected, the morning after the breakdown on set. The studio felt quieter than usual, as if the building itself remembered what had happened. The crew arrived one by one, shuffling past the coffee table, pretending not to glance at Ana's trailer. They were professionals, but even professionals could feel tension in the air when someone's heart had been left bare. Ana didn't show up at call time. Her name stayed on the schedule, but her trailer door remained shut. Most assumed she was resting. Some whispered that she might leave the project. Others simply stayed silent, hoping she would walk in with her usual smile and pretend everything was fine. Inside her trailer, Ana sat curled under a blanket, staring at the steam rising from a fresh cup of tea. She hadn't made it. Someone had left it at her doorstep. The moment she'd opened the trailer door that morning, she found it there. Her favorite blend, steeped perfectly, still warm. And underneath the cup, folded neatly, was a small note written in careful handwriting. "You don't have to explain anything to anyone. Take your time. The light will wait for you. K." Ana reread the note 4 times before setting it down. The simplicity of it moved something inside her. No drama, no pressure, just space. Gentle space to breathe. But that wasn't the only message she received. At 9:06 a.m., as she sat in silence, her phone buzzed with an email. The subject line made her pause. It simply read, "From one friend to another." It came from a private account, not her agency, not the studio. She opened it, expecting maybe a supportive message from a crew member who had noticed her pain. Instead, it was a story. A story about a woman, an actress in the early 90s, who lost her brother in the middle of filming. She had tried to finish the movie, pretending to smile, until her grief became unbearable. No one stopped to ask how she was really doing. No one gave her space. Until one man walked into her dressing room, handed her a single book about healing, and sat with her in silence. That book saved her. The man. Keanu Reeves. Ana stared at the message in disbelief. The story was detailed, honest, emotional, but there was no name, no signature, just one final line at the end. "I've been where you are." Not the same pain, but the same silence. "You don't have to go through it alone. Take the time. The right people will wait." Her throat tightened. Her hands shook slightly as she closed her phone. She didn't need to guess who sent it. She knew. Later that afternoon, a decision was made without a single word exchanged. She stepped out of her trailer slowly, the blanket still wrapped around her shoulders like a shield. The makeup artist rushed over, ready to fix her for the next scene, but Ana raised her hand gently. "Not yet," she said. "I just need to walk." And walk she did. Across the studio lot, past the costume trucks, past the lunch tents, until she reached the far edge of the set where a few crew members were setting up lights for a scene postponed. And there, under the scaffolding, adjusting something on a rusted light rig, was Keanu. He didn't see her at first. He was standing on a short ladder, sleeves rolled up, tightening a bolt himself. The crew around him watched in quiet amusement. He didn't need to do that work, but he did anyway. Just to keep his hands busy while waiting for the day to resume, Ana approached slowly, stopping just a few steps away. "Was the story true?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. Keanu turned. The light behind him caught the streak of gray in his hair. He blinked once, then smiled gently. "Yes," he said. "And the woman?" "She found her way back. In time." Ana didn't respond right away. Her eyes welled up. "Thank you for the message, and the tea, and the note." Keanu stepped down from the ladder and set his tools aside. "I didn't send them for thanks," he said. "I sent them because it's easy to forget that behind every perfect take is a person, and every person has days when pretending is too hard." She nodded, her lips trembling. It was getting too hard. Keanu didn't offer advice. He didn't give her a speech. Instead, he asked a simple question. "What do you need today?" Ana looked down, her voice barely audible. "I need not to act. Just for one day. I want to feel real again." Keanu smiled. "Then let's do something real." He led her past the trailers, past the lot, out toward a quiet corner of the studio where no cameras could follow. He brought her to a small garden hidden behind, an old prop shed, overgrown, wild, but peaceful. It was his favorite place to sit when the world became too loud. There was a bench under a tree, worn by time, and 2 ceramic mugs left on a crate. One still had coffee rings at the bottom. "This is where I go," he said, "when I need to remember who I am, not who I'm supposed to be." Ana sat beside him, taking it in. No spotlight, no makeup, no pressure. Just a bench, a breeze, and someone who understood without needing all the details. They sat for nearly an hour, barely speaking, just breathing, just being. And when they stood up to walk back, Ana turned to him and said, "You've helped me more in one day than most people have in years." Keanu shrugged softly, a playful smile at the corner of his lips. "Sometimes the best way to help is just to show up." That evening, word reached the producers. Ana would be ready to return to filming the next day, not because someone told her to, not because her contract demanded it, but because someone gave her the space to fall apart, and then quietly helped her rebuild. But just as the sun began to set, Ana received another surprise. A handwritten envelope was slid under her trailer door. No return address, no name, just one line on the front. "If you knew what he did behind the scenes, you'd never look at him the same way again." The truth hidden in quiet corners. The envelope sat untouched on the small table inside Ana's trailer for nearly 30 minutes. She had stared at it, walked away, then sat back down, unsure why her hands wouldn't reach for it. There was something about the handwriting, delicate, careful, written like it belonged in a journal instead of a message meant to be read by someone else. The line on the front kept echoing in her mind. "If you knew what he did behind the scenes, you'd never look at him the same way again." Was it a warning, a compliment, a burden? She didn't know. All she knew was that her heart beat faster just thinking about what might be inside. Finally, with slow fingers, she opened the flap. There was no folded paper, no signature. Only a single printed photograph and a note scribbled on the back. The photo showed a younger Keanu, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, standing in the middle of what looked like a hospital hallway. He wasn't in costume. He was wearing jeans and a plain black hoodie. His hair was shorter. His expression was unreadable. Behind him stood two nurses, one clearly wiping her eyes, and beside him was a small child in a wheelchair, maybe 7, pulled from treatment, smiling so wide that it almost hurt to look at. On the back of the photo, in the same handwriting, were just a few lines. He cancelled 3 days of filming and paid for the crew's overtime from his own account, just so this kid could finish his final wish. He never told the press. The studio never knew. Only a handful of people were there that night, and I was one of them. Some heroes don't wear capes. They just show up when no one else will. Ana sat frozen. She didn't even realize she was crying, until a tear rolled onto the photo. She wiped it gently, as if the image were something sacred. Why hadn't anyone ever told her this? In an industry where even the smallest good deed became a headline, Keanu's silence about something this profound was almost impossible to believe. And yet, it made sense. Everything about him, his quiet way of helping, his respect for space, his gentle patience. It all pointed to a man who didn't need the world to know who he was. He just needed to be someone he could live with. That evening, the set was quiet again. The rain machine was being tested, crew members moving like clockwork, unaware of the emotional storm that still sat heavy in Ana's chest. She found herself searching for him, not to confront, not to thank, but just to understand. She found him alone again, sitting near the prop crates by the edge of the lot. He was flipping through an old script, his eyes distant. She approached, without speaking, sat beside him. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was filled with something more powerful than words. Finally, she held out the photo. He looked at it, paused, and gave the smallest sigh. Then handed it back. "How did you find that?" he asked softly. "Someone left it for me," she said. "Someone who was there." He nodded, eyes on the ground. "I didn't want anyone to know. That kid. He reminded me of someone." Ana waited. She didn't push, and maybe that's why he continued. "I had a friend once, years ago. She was like my sister. We grew up in the same neighborhood. Both of us dreamed of escaping. She wanted to be a painter. I wanted to be anything but invisible. She got sick when we were 23. Really sick. I was in the middle of shooting my first big movie. I missed her last week." He paused, swallowed hard. "I swore I'd never do that again." Ana felt the weight in his voice. It wasn't performative. It wasn't for show. It was memory, grief, guilt reshaped into kindness. "So when I found out about the kid and his wish," he continued, "I didn't think twice. I just did what I wished someone had done for her." Ana leaned back, letting the story settle in her bones. The photograph now felt heavier in her hand. Not because of the paper, but because of what it represented. "You've carried a lot," she said. Quietly, Keanu gave a tired smile. "Most people do. They just don't talk about it." The wind picked up, rustling the edges of a nearby tarp. Ana tucked the photo into her jacket pocket, not to hide it, but to keep it close. That night, after shooting resumed, Ana stepped into her scene with more clarity than she had in weeks. She still felt tired, still missed her mother, still held pieces of herself that needed mending. But something was different. She wasn't acting through pain anymore. She was allowing it to breathe inside the performance. And the camera caught it. The director knew instantly they had the take. As the crew applauded gently, she looked over to Keanu. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He just met her eyes and gave a quiet, steady look, the kind that said, "You're not pretending anymore. And I see you." But their moment of quiet victory didn't last. After the shoot wrapped, as Ana walked back to her trailer, her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. This one had no photo, just 10 words. He's keeping something from you, something that will break you. A thread from the Pastana didn't open the message right away. She read the line once, twice, then shut off her phone. Something about those 10 words had unsettled her, not in the way a threat might, but like an itch behind the heart. Something she couldn't see but could feel was there. He's keeping something from you. Something that will break you. She lay awake most of the night. The trailer was quiet, dim, the hum of nearby generators the only sound. Outside, the studio lights bled through the edges of the curtain like memories trying to push their way in. She stared at the ceiling, not because she wanted to sleep, but because she was afraid of what her mind might remember if she closed her eyes. Keanu had been nothing but kind, patient, generous. But this message, however vague, had opened a door. Inside her she didn't know was there. A door connected to old pain. Something buried so deep she had promised herself never to open it again. When she was 12, Ana's father had disappeared. One day he was there, drinking coffee with shaking hands and kissing her mother's temple, and the next, gone. No. Note. No goodbye, just absence. Her mother had always said he left for the right reasons. He loved you, just not in the way you needed. For years, Ana hadn't asked questions, hadn't searched. She had chosen to forget. Until now. The next morning she walked into hair and makeup early, her mind still tangled in that message. The team greeted her warmly, complimented her performance from the day before, but she barely registered the words. Her eyes scanned the crew area, looking for a familiar black hoodie. Keanu was nowhere to be seen. He called in late, someone said casually, dusting powder across her cheek. Said he had something personal to take care of. Ana nodded, but her heart skipped. Something personal, after all they'd shared, all he'd said. Why now? By noon, she couldn't take the weight anymore. She pulled out the photo again, the one with the sick child and the nurses. She flipped it over. The handwriting. There was something about it, something that gnawed at her. She opened her phone and compared it to the new message. Not identical, but close, very close. She made her way to the production office under the pretense of needing old call sheets. Once inside, she asked to see archival footage of behind-the-scenes clips from Keanu's earlier films. No one questioned her. She was the lead actress, after all. It took her 2 hours to find what she wasn't even sure she was looking for, a grainy clip from a forgotten press reel. A young Keanu, smiling shyly, seated beside a woman in a pale blue blouse. She was speaking about an upcoming charity event. Her voice was soft, nervous. "We're just trying to help the families who fall through the cracks," the woman said. "The ones who don't have health insurance or access, or anyone who'll take them seriously." Keanu was nodding beside her, supportive, but silent. And then, off camera, someone said her name. Ana's breath caught. It was her mother's name. She stared at the screen in disbelief. Rewound the clip. Played it again. Same name. Same voice. Same soft mannerisms. The woman beside Keanu, years ago in that forgotten press clip, was her mother. Ana's heart pounded. It didn't make sense. Her mother had never mentioned knowing him, never talked about charity work, never said a word about that world. She rushed to the prop storage room, where she knew she could find quiet. She called her mother. "Mama," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. Did you ever work with Keanu Reeves?" There was a long pause on the other end. Then, her mother said something Ana never expected. "I wondered when you'd find out." The room around her spun. Her knees felt weak. She sat on an overturned crate, her fingers trembling. "What do you mean?" Ana asked. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Her mother sighed, that tired kind of sigh that carries years of secrets, because it was never supposed to be about him. It was about you." Ana didn't speak. Her mouth was dry. Her heart was roaring in her ears. Her mother continued slowly. "When your father left, we were drowning. Emotionally, financially. I couldn't feed you some nights. I was too proud to ask for help. And then Keanu found out. He had seen me crying outside the clinic one night. I didn't even know he noticed. He asked nothing. Just handed me an envelope the next morning. No explanation. No expectations. Inside was enough money to keep us going for a year." Ana felt tears sliding down her face. "He helped us quietly, for years. Even when I told him we were okay. He'd send something small. A book. A toy. One year the art supplies you got for Christmas, those were from him," Ana whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her mother's voice broke. "Because he asked me not to." Ana sat in silence, the weight of the past crashing into the present. All this time, she thought Keanu's kindness had started days ago. But it had begun long before she ever stepped onto a film set. Long before she knew how to pronounce his name. Long before she ever acted in front of a camera. He had known. He had watched from a distance. And now somehow, she had been cast across from him. Not by coincidence, but by a thread that had been woven years ago, in the shadows. By a man who had never asked for anything in return. She ended the call, sat alone, stared at the floor for a long time. Then, like something pulling her, she walked back toward the garden behind the prop shed, the place Keanu always went to disappear. And there, sitting with his thermos and an unread book in his lap, was the man who had been part of her life far longer than she'd ever known. She stopped a few feet away, her voice barely holding together. "Why didn't you tell me?" Keanu looked up slowly, met her eyes, didn't smile, because it wasn't about me. She stepped closer. "But you knew, all this time. You knew who I was." He nodded. "The moment I saw your name on the call sheet, I knew." Ana sat down, across from him, knees weak, heart raw. "Why didn't you say something?" He looked down at the book in his hands, then up again. "Because I wanted you to walk your own path. You didn't need to know who helped you. You just needed to know you could keep going. And you did." Her chest ached. Her throat burned. "You could have told me." "Maybe," he said. "But would you have believed in yourself the same way? If you thought someone was always carrying you?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. The moment held too much. But even then, even in the quiet truth of that garden, neither of them knew that another secret still waited. And this one would change both their lives forever. The journal with the red thread. The next morning, the air on set was different. Not lighter, not heavier, but quieter. Like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next truth to unfold. Ana walked with her hands in her pockets, eyes cast down, her thoughts far away from lights, cameras, and dialogue. Every step she took now felt like it echoed into her past, into a version of her life she hadn't even known existed until yesterday. Her conversation with Keanu still pulsed through her mind, the calm honesty in his voice, the stillness in his eyes, the way he carried years of kindness like a quiet shield, never asking for recognition, never needing anything in return. But even after knowing everything he had done, Ana couldn't stop asking herself one question. Why did this all feel familiar? It was like trying to remember a dream she'd once had, one with blurry faces and unfinished sentences. She had never connected the dots between those unexpected gifts from her childhood, the small envelopes, the occasional packages. She had assumed it was her mother doing her best in secret. Now she knew the truth. But deep inside, something else was stirring, something even older. Something she had forgotten on purpose. It was only when she returned to her apartment later that evening, long after the crew had wrapped, that a forgotten box changed everything. She was looking for an old scarf in her closet, when her elbow knocked a dusty carton from the top shelf. It fell with a soft thud, spilling its contents onto the floor. Inside were memories, school notebooks, childhood drawings, birthday cards, and at the very bottom, a tiny red threaded journal. Ana stared at it. She hadn't seen that journal in over a decade. It was the one she used between the ages of 8 and 10, the years after her father disappeared. She picked it up with slow fingers, brushing away the dust, like it was something sacred. She sat on the floor and opened it. Most of the pages were filled with little poems, made-up stories, doodles of suns and stars. But one page near the middle stopped her completely. The handwriting was uneven, clearly written by a child trying to spell bigger words. Today, Mama cried when I said I missed Papa. I saw her try to hide it, but I know. I wish someone nice would come, someone like the man I saw outside the clinic. He smiled at me. He had sad eyes, too. I think if I had a big brother, he would look like him. Maybe he's an angel. Maybe he's not real. But he saw me. He really saw me. Ana's chest tightened. Her hand trembled. She turned the page. On the back, in smaller writing, barely legible, was one final line. If I ever meet him again when I'm big, I'll thank him for Mama, and for seeing me. Her throat closed up. It wasn't just a forgotten memory. It was a promise. And now, sitting on her floor as an adult, with the weight of that journal in her lap, Ana realized the man she had written about, the one with sad eyes, the one she had called an angel in a child's voice, was Keanu. He had been there, even then. A stranger at the edge of her childhood, a quiet witness to her pain, a protector she hadn't even known to thank. The next morning she didn't wait. She walked directly to the prop shed garden before filming began. The sky was still gray, the air damp with dew. She found him exactly where she expected, sitting with his thermos, reading a weathered book. She didn't say hello, didn't offer small talk. She handed him the journal, open to the page. Keanu read it slowly. His face didn't change, but when he looked up, his eyes glistened with the weight of memory. "I remember that day," he said quietly. "Your shoes were too small. Your socks had holes in them. You were sitting on the curb eating crackers from a paper bag." Ana's breath caught. "You saw all that?" she asked. "I never forgot," he replied. "Sometimes you see something, and it stays." They sat in silence for a long time. Then Ana said, I think you've been part of my life longer than anyone else, even if I didn't know it." Keanu looked out toward the morning light breaking through the clouds. "Maybe that's the only kind of help that matters, the kind that's quiet, the kind that doesn't expect to be remembered." Ana reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the photo, the one with the boy in the wheelchair. She placed it beside the journal. "I remembered you," she whispered. "Even when I didn't know it was you." He didn't smile, but something in his face softened, something deep and old and full of peace. Just then, a crew member called from the lot. They were needed on set. Ana stood slowly, the journal still in her hands. "I'll be there in 5, she said, then turned to Keanu. "Thank you. For every version of me you helped survive." He nodded once. "Thank you for seeing me now." But as they parted ways, neither of them noticed the figure standing behind the old lighting rig, watching them carefully. A man in a studio badge, someone with access, and in his hand was a photo, one Ana hadn't seen yet. A photo of her father, standing beside Keanu, smiling. The face in the photograph. The sky was already beginning to darken when Ana stepped off set. The last scene had wrapped early, but she didn't feel relieved. She felt suspended, like her heart was still hanging on some invisible thread, waiting to be tugged one last time. She walked quietly to her trailer, holding the red-threaded journal close to her chest. It had become more than a childhood memory now. It was a bridge between two versions of herself. The girl who once wished for someone to see her, and the woman who had finally realized someone always had. Her phone buzzed as she reached the door. Unknown number. No message. Just a single image. She opened it, and the moment she saw it, the world tilted. It was a photograph, grainy and faded, but unmistakable. Her father, standing beside Keanu, the same man she had spent years trying to erase from her memory, was smiling with the same man who had saved her, guided her, protected her. She stared at the photo for what felt like hours. It made no sense. There was no date, no caption, just a moment frozen in time. Her father's face, worn, sun-touched, tired but unmistakably his, and Keanu beside him, younger, holding a duffel bag like he was about to leave for a long trip. She rushed out of the trailer, heart pounding, the journal still clutched in one hand and the phone in the other. She found Keanu in the back lot, just as he was loading a few props into the trunk of his car. His expression softened when he saw her. "You okay?" he asked. Ana didn't answer. She just held up the photo. Keanu's eyes changed. He didn't blink. Didn't speak right away. And when he did, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You found it." Ana's breath hitched. "How do you know him?" Keanu stepped back, leaning against the car as if the truth itself had weight. "Because he asked me to." Ana shook her head. "Asked you to what?" Keanu looked away, his gaze drifting toward the horizon like he was pulling the answer from a place buried deep inside him. "To look after you," he said. The words hit her like wind through glass. "Before he left, he came to me. I didn't know him well, not yet. We met through the charity work. He volunteered when he could. Quiet guy, smart, sad eyes. Said he was in trouble but wouldn't say what. He told me he had to go somewhere for reasons he couldn't explain. But he couldn't take you or your mother. He was afraid someone would come for him, or worse, for you. So he gave me a letter, a photo of you, and a promise." Anna's voice cracked. "What promise?" Keanu looked at her then, his eyes holding. The kind of sorrow that can only come from years of carrying something alone. "That if anything ever happened to him, or if he couldn't come back, I'd make sure you were okay. Not in a loud way, not in a way that would confuse you. Just enough. Enough to help, to guide, to protect from the shadows." Ana felt her knees tremble. She sat down on the nearest step, the journal resting beside her. "So all this time, all these years," Keanu nodded. "I kept my word." The silence that followed was thick with all the years lost, all the questions unanswered. But beneath it, something else bloomed, a quiet gratitude, too big for words. "Did you ever see him again?" Ana finally asked. Keanu hesitated. "Once." "Where?" He pulled something from his jacket pocket, another photo. This one was more recent. It showed her father, older, standing near a small clinic in a rural town. He looked thinner, tired, but alive. "I tracked him down years later. He was living in hiding, still watching from a distance. He never reached out, said he didn't, deserve to. But he asked about you, said he read every article, watched every interview, said you became more than he ever hoped for." Anna's hands trembled as she held the photo. "Why didn't you tell me this earlier?" she whispered. Keanu's voice was soft. "Because you were still healing, and I wasn't sure knowing would help or hurt, until now." The weight of the truth washed over her, not like a wave, but like a tide that had always been there, rising slowly, reaching her feet. That night, Ana went back to her trailer and wrote in the journal again, for the first time in years. Only this time, her handwriting was steady, her words deliberate. "Today I met my guardian, the one I wished for when I was little. He didn't wear armor, He didn't fly, he just stayed. And sometimes, that's what heroes look like. Weeks later, the movie wrapped. The final scene was filmed. The lights came down. The set was struck. Ana and Keanu stood side by side at the wrap party, quiet amidst the celebration. Someone handed her a glass of champagne, but she didn't drink it. She was too full already, of truth, of memory, of peace. Before leaving, Keanu handed her a small package. No note, no explanation. Inside was a folded paper, old and soft at the corners. It was her father's letter, the one he had left with Keanu all those years ago. It read, "If she ever asks, tell her she was the best part of me. And that I left not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Tell her I prayed that someone kinder than me would walk beside her, someone who knew how to carry light. If that someone is you, thank you. You've done what I could not." Ana held the letter to her heart, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Keanu didn't say goodbye that night. He just gave her a small nod, the kind that held everything words could never carry. And then he was gone, just as quietly as he had entered her life, and yet never truly gone at all, because some people don't leave footprints. They leave light. And for the rest of her life, Ana would carry that light with her, not as a memory, but as a promise fulfilled.